It is 10 o'clock. Welcome into the three-man front. Pat Smith, Conrad Van Order, Molly Robinson, Landrum Roberts with you until 2 o'clock. Thanks for tuning us in, watching on YouTube, whether you're downloading it on the Jocks app or listening to us on great radio stations in North Alabama, Central Alabama, and, of course, the capital city of Montgomery. In just a couple of minutes, Christian Clemente, he is going to join us from Auburn Undercover. Big news story last night for the Auburn Tigers, a big get. This was being rumored for quite some time, Landrum, is that the Auburn Tigers was going to flip Duce Knight, the left-handed quarterback out of the state of Mississippi, and it came to fruition last night.
Yeah, and for the lack of positivity that has come out of the Auburn football program in the first 5 weeks of the season, the trend continues for that staff, for Hugh Freeze, to be able to attract some of the top talent in the nation. And Duce Knight, 6'4.5", 210-pounder, left-hander. I think he was the MVP by some at the Elite 11. He is certainly a guy that Auburn fans can get excited about. As far as immediacy, though, and being able to help next season, I don't know. We'll talk to Christian about that when he joins us.
Yeah, but you mentioned it. He's got size. He's got speed, athleticism. I was reading a write-up that Jason Caldwell from Auburn Undercover, what he had on him last night. He was talking about how he literally could play any position on the football field. He's that type of athlete. So that is a big get, which means that quarterback room is going to be a little bit more crowded, but just like you see in any position, especially in the SEC, you have got to stack talent as much as you possibly can. And you know what? You get all those guys in the quarterback room, and then you feel like you need to go in the transfer portal and find you a quarterback to supplement those guys, or maybe to come in as a veteran type of experience. You've got that luxury. So that was a big get last night for Auburn.
Yeah, it was. And supposedly he's been a wink silent commit since August. And it's really no surprise with the 4 visits he's made, and, of course, his family coming and meeting with the coaching staff after being long committed to Notre Dame since September of 2023, I think is what I read. But some of these other big dogs that are out there, not necessarily saying a 5-star like Caleb Cunningham, because they are friends. I think that he probably sticks with his commitment to Alabama. But some of these other guys, is it Offord, the talented cornerback there from Parker High School, that's currently committed to Ohio State. I think that they're close. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of momentum that they can get on top of this commitment from Duce Knight yesterday.
And so Auburn now currently, if you pay attention to these recruiting rankings, as of this moment, Auburn is 3rd. Ohio State is number 1. Alabama is number 2. Auburn is number 3 through the current 2025 recruiting class rankings. So Christian Clemente, he's going to join us in just a minute from Auburn Undercover and give us his thoughts on Duce Knight. But I go back to what Landrum just said. This is something that has been percolating for quite some time. That has been a heavy rumor in the recruiting world and in the high school football recruiting that we try to follow here on Three-Man Front, is that he was potentially going to make that flip. He has been committed to Notre Dame for quite some time. And I know
September of 2023.
Yeah, and so you had a situation where most of the people up in the upper Midwest, they did not feel comfortable with that commitment from a Mississippi kid that was ultimately going to go to Notre Dame. Joining us now on the Buyers Right Hotline from Auburn Undercover, does an outstanding job covering recruiting for 247 Auburn's website. Christian Clemente joins us here on Three-Man Front. Christian, I know that this was not a very well-kept secret because the rumors were out there that this was ultimately going to happen, but just your immediate thoughts on Duce Knight committing last night.
Yeah, my immediate thought was probably thank goodness this is over, because it took so long to actually happen, to be honest. I mean, you mentioned it. It was something that had been speculated on, and it was a recruitment that favored Auburn, honestly, really since he showed up for Big Cat Weekend. His parents came in, and they were there for the event. Duce came in just a little bit later in the day, and it was kind of a secret visit. He only hung out with some of the commitments and guys that he really knew that wouldn't spill the beans, at least immediately. But it pretty quickly came out that he was on campus. And so from that point on, it favored Auburn. But it just took a lot longer to get over the hump and finally get him to publicly, flip to Auburn. He silently did it after he visited for the Alabama A&M game to start the year. And his plan was to go public for the Cal game, but ends up kind of waiting and holding off a little bit, still having conversations there with Notre Dame. But finally, after his official visit over this past weekend, Auburn got to the finish line, got him fully convinced to go public with it. And obviously, thankfully, saw that news on Wednesday, and now can move on and not have to focus on that in recruiting coverage.
Christian, with you following his recruitment there at Auburn, what were some of the selling points? Was it proximity? Was familiarity the program? What was it that you believe that pushed him over the top and got him to land that commitment or to give that verbal pledge to Hugh Freeze?
Yeah, he's always really, really liked Auburn. Even going back to stories that I wrote with Duce last year before he committed to Notre Dame. Hugh Freeze recruited his older brother, Ty Freifogel, who was a wide receiver who ended up going to Indiana. He recruited him at Ole Miss. So he's been familiar with that family for a long time. The proximity to home was definitely a factor down the stretch. It's easy for a kid before their junior year to commit to Notre Dame or, commit to go play across the country at Oregon or whatever. And then all of a sudden, once it gets closer to time to leave, they're like, I'd kind of like to be a little bit closer to home. I might want to go home for a weekend and have mom's cooking or something like that. And so that was definitely a factor. And I think playing in the SEC was as well, along with, you look at the wide receiver class that Auburn signed in 2024. It's definitely very appealing for a quarterback, especially like Duce, to be able to throw to those guys.
Christian Clemente joins us from Auburn Undercover talking about Duce Knight, his flipping from Notre Dame to Auburn last night and the verbal commitment for the Auburn Tigers. Okay, you've got an article up right now at Auburn Undercover, and I want you to go into it if you could in regards to could this be a domino effect? And I know a lot of people talk about Caleb Cunningham and they talk about others. What are you hearing on that front?
Yeah, I certainly think it helps with a guy like Caleb Cunningham. I mean, he said as much after he visited Auburn for the Arkansas game earlier this year. He said really the only chance that Auburn has is if they get a guy like Duce Knight. Those guys are friends. And he also said, part of the reason I chose Alabama in the first place was they had an extremely talented quarterback in Keelan Russell, and Auburn didn't have a guy yet. Now, I still think that's an uphill battle for Auburn to climb, and there's still a ways to go there, and that one will go down the stretch. And I'd probably still favor him to stick with Alabama, but it helps you with a guy like that. It helps you with other wide receivers, but it also helps you with some other guys as well. Guys like Neem Offord, the five-star cornerback there out of Parker, who's committed to Ohio State. Auburn has been surging in that recruitment for a couple months now, and this is definitely a boost. It helps with a guy like Andrew Babalola as well, the five-star offensive tackle out of Kansas. Him and Duce have been talking behind the scenes for 6-8 weeks now, probably. And Duce has been recruiting him to Auburn really the whole time, saying, look, I need a guy to come protect me. So even though he wasn't publicly committed to Auburn, those have been conversations. So I don't know if there's any guys that it's directly like, okay, Duce is in the class, now I'm in for sure. But it's, it always helps to have a quarterback in your class.
Christian Clemente, who does a wonderful job of covering Auburn there at Auburn Undercover, joining us here on Three Man Front. All of our guests join us on the Buyers Right Hotline. For our listeners who haven't watched highlight reels from his time there in Lucedale, Mississippi, give us an idea, some comps, maybe some players that he reminds you of.
Yes, so our Jason Caldwell, he does our kind of player analysis, and the comp that he had for him, and he said it's a lofty one, which it is. He said Vince Young is kind of who he went with. Now, Duce is a lefty, but he's an athletic freak. He's been lasered at a 4.53 in the 40. In terms of the NFL Combine, there's only been, I think, in the last 10 years, 5 or 6 guys that have run faster than that. And that he's doing that as a high school. That was his junior year. 6'4", 205, somewhere around there. Probably by the time he gets to college and as he's playing, probably closer to 6'4" and probably 215, 220. Put on a little bit more muscle, but he is a physical specimen who still needs to refine his passing game a little bit. That's always been kind of the knock on him, where he's completing 55 to 60% of his passes, but you need him in high school probably closer to 65 to 70. It's kind of a similar commitment to what Auburn got in the 2024 class in terms of Walker White, where the upside is through the roof, and it's guys that have an extremely high ceiling, but the floor is maybe a little bit lower as well, because you need them to develop and you need them to pan out. But if you're Auburn, you definitely feel good that you've got 2 of those guys, and you kind of see, well, which one hits, or do both of them hit, and kind of where do we go from there?
Christian, this is a question that we get a lot on this radio show because the season, the first month, is not gone like Auburn thought it was going to go, maybe 4-1, 5-0, best case scenario. But being 1 game under 500 heading to Athens, the momentum that they've had on the recruiting trail, have you seen any signs of maybe some guys maybe wavering a little bit. I know that it's inevitable, whether Auburn was 5-0 or 2-3, that kids are going to waver. We're talking about 17, 18-year-old kids. But have you seen any signs that maybe recruiting has taken a ding, at least the guys that's already verbally committed to Auburn, because of the way Auburn is playing currently on the field?
Yeah, as of now, as crazy as it is to say this, so far so good on that front, at least from the guys that we've spoken with. A lot of them have said, we believe in what Auburn is building. We believe that, we can make a change. They're watching the 2024 class, guys like Cam Coleman, Malcolm Simmons, DeMarcus Riddick, Caleb Harris, whoever. They're watching those guys make plays and saying, well, we can go and do that too. And, we can fill out the gaps a little bit. But you hit the nail on the head. It didn't matter if Auburn goes 2-3 or 5-0. They will probably lose a guy or two out of this class because that's just how it always goes. That's not intel based. That's just me playing the numbers and saying, look, you're always going to lose a guy or two down the stretch. And you may move on from a guy or two as well, depending on how their senior season plays. So definitely would not shock me if of the 25 guys they've got committed, 1 or 2 aren't in the class. So far, none of them have really been super shaky, at least publicly, in terms of kind of where they stand with Auburn. Now, if Auburn continues to tailspin as they go on the road for 3 straight games now, that could certainly change some things. And, if they're sitting there at 2-6, the commits might be a little bit more shaky, but we'll see where things go. And like I said, so far, it's been so good for Auburn.
Christian, not asking you if you don't want to go player specific, but with this momentum, any idea, your best guess is when Auburn could land another commitment?
Yes, so all eyes will be on Usman Kroma, the running back out of Lee County, Georgia. He's announcing his decision on Saturday. There's a lot of confidence at Georgia about where things stand there, but there's also a good bit of confidence in Auburn as well. Now, when it comes down to something like that, I'm absolutely going to favor Georgia, being an in-state school there. So I would favor Georgia in that one, but we'll see. Maybe a guy like Duce puts Auburn over the edge going into Saturday. So that'll be one to watch. And then from there, Andrew Babalola wants to have a decision by the end of October. Neem Offord is a guy that I think will probably go the stretch all the way to signing day there on December 4th, but Auburn has definitely been making a pretty big move there. So we'll see kind of where things trend with him. Maybe I'll throw out a surprise pick. Maybe a guy like Dalen Upshaw, the receiver from Central Phoenix City, who's already been on campus several times this fall, and Auburn's kind of ramping things up with a little bit. That one maybe could move a little bit quicker than anticipated. That
is Christian Clemente. He does an outstanding job covering recruiting for 247, Auburn recruiting for Auburn Undercover. You can follow him on Twitter or X at CC Clemente, or at C Clemente 247. Christian, always appreciate your time. I know it's a really busy time on the Auburn recruiting front, and we appreciate you guys at Auburn Undercover and everything you do and share with us. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you. That's Christian Clemente joining us on the Buyers Rye Hotline. So right out of the gate, Landrum, some big news for Auburn last night. And with all the negativity over the course of the last few weeks, a bit of good news as you're heading into a very important game against Georgia.
Yeah, it certainly is. And what he mentioned there, you talk about 5-star offensive tackle and the Babalola kid from Kansas, and they've been talking for a while. Maybe that's good news for the future of that offensive line. And you know that talent attracts talent. So we've seen it many times at Alabama with their recruiting classes, and it looks like that's going the way of Hugh Freeze in this particular recruiting class.
When we come back on three-man front, the injury reports came out last night. Very interesting. A very important player will not be playing for the Georgia Bulldogs against Auburn. Not really sure what's up, but we'll tell you what these reports look like. Also, a lot of banged-up guys for Ole Miss and South Carolina coming up this weekend. Very interesting what that line might do in that game. All that on the Thursday edition of Three Man Front.
10:17 off and running here on this Thursday. Three-man from Jocks 94.5. We got the NFL tonight. You can hear the game right here on Jocks 7:15. That follows the Coach Bill Clark show at 6 o'clock tonight. You have quite the matchup in the NFC. Falcons hosting the Tampa Bay Bucks that roll in at 3-1. The Falcons at 2-2. And also Veterans Memorial Stadium there in Troy, Alabama. You have a little fun belt on a Thursday night as Texas State and those Bobcats. Molly wasn't ready with a sound effect, but the Bobcats, they take on the Troy Trojans, trying to bounce back after falling last weekend. Molly, Bobcats. There it is. You get that game at 6 o'clock tonight, so that should be a lot of fun as well. What is not fun is replacing your roof. Well, we got good news. If you have an older roof, you think it needs to be replaced, well, think again. Our friends at Roof Max of Hoover, they have a professional and affordable roof treatment scientifically proven to reduce the aging process of your asphalt roof. With Roof Max, you're going to have the protection of a brand new roof in only a few hours. Plus, you're going to save thousands with a safe, effective, and affordable natural treatment. Roof Max resaturates your old, dirty, dry shingles with a natural, bio-friendly treatment that can give you 5 more years of protection guaranteed. And if you flip houses, maybe you're a real estate agent, this is definitely a selling point and the perfect solution to extend the life of the roof. Get a free roof assessment, Roof Max of Hoover. Again, the average cost of a new roof is $15,000 to $20,000. And if you haven't had a storm that has affected your home, insurance isn't going to pay for that. I don't know if you're like me. I don't have an extra $15,000 to $20,000 to throw around. Cost of Roof Max, pennies on the dollar. Once again, Roof Max of Hoover. Give them a call or you can text them 205-913-CAGE. That's 2243-913-CAGE, CAGE. And you can text and use promo code JOCKS for that discount and the free roof assessment.
So Wednesday nights is the first opportunity for us to kind of look through the injury reports. That's the first one that is listed on Wednesday evening. And a very interesting name popped up on the Georgia injury report. And a lot of people, especially in Georgia, goes, what? Have no idea why. But when the player played 58 snaps against the University of Alabama Saturday night, he was the number 1 rated defensive player by Pro Football Focus against Alabama. When linebacker Smile Munden is out for the Auburn game, that caught my attention. They've got 8 players named on the first injury report against Auburn. Munden's inclusion was out of the blue. It was unexpected. And it's still unknown what is holding him out against Auburn, unless he was banged up to the point to where he got into practice this week and is unable to go. So don't want to risk him moving down the road, or maybe they believe that they do not need him against Auburn. Not really sure. Also listed running back Roderick Robinson, wide receiver London Humphreys, and offensive lineman Tate Ratledge is also listed as out, which obviously Ratledge had the surgery on his ankle, so that was no big surprise. But man, when you look up and you see that Smile Munden is not playing against Auburn, if you're Hugh Freeze and that offensive staff, you're probably going, okay, that helps.
It helps. You know that they're loaded at every position. They got plenty of talent and depth everywhere, but you'll take what you can get if you're Auburn. The line not budging, though. Not that you'd think it would after an availability report and somebody like that. Even a quarterback's not going to move the line that much, but yeah, still sitting at 24 right now in the over-under at 51.5 for the game between the hedges on Saturday.
Meanwhile, the Auburn injury report, Brandon Frazier out, Tyler Scott out, Champ Anthony out, Xavier Miller questionable, Alex McPherson probable, Jaron Thompson probable, Jalen McLeod probable, Dorian Mousey Jr. is probable. So that's positive in regards to what Auburn's report looks like. Meanwhile, Alabama and Vanderbilt, Alabama's coming into the game extremely healthy, which after you play a game against the Georgia Bulldogs, they came out of that looking really good. Matter of fact, there's only 2 players that's on the Alabama report. Wide receiver Kendrick Law is questionable, and Justin Jefferson, the linebacker, is probable. Those are the only 2 players listed for the University of Alabama. Meanwhile, Vandy, they've got 3 players out, 2 questionable, and 3 probable. in the game. And I mentioned the South Carolina Ole Miss. It's fascinating when you start looking at these reports, and these players can improve. Just because they're listed on Wednesday night doesn't mean that they won't be able to go on Saturday. But take a listen to this.
I mean, it's stupid.
But I'm just going to throw out some of the more important ones. But when you've got running back number 1 for Ole Miss, Henry Parrish, running back number 2, Matt Jones, and wide receiver number 1, Trey Harris, listed as questionable for the Rebels, that's a problem. But meanwhile, on the other side, for South Carolina, you've got quarterback 1, Lenora Sellers, and running back number 1, Rocket Sanders, are also listed as questionable. But you've got the Ole Miss list in front of you.
Ole Miss, you've got 25 guys. Not saying they're all out.
Yeah, but
some
25
are probable,
listed for whatever reason.
But 25 listed. That is wild. They're doing the best they can to bait us to taking that plus 9.5. If that's where the line still is.
I think it's at 11.5 now.
No, it's actually, nope. It is Ole Miss -9.
Oh,
I'm
it
looking at it right
went
now.
down.
Yep.
Okay.
It did. So Ole Miss -9 going on the road. There to Columbia.
Well, when your number 1 wide receiver is now questionable and your top 2 running backs are listed as questionable, man, Kentucky really put a beat down on them.
Yeah. And here's the thing. That was going to be a tough game with those guys and with some of these guys. If they do play, South Carolina, Shane Beamer, I think he's turned some heads. He's turned my head. I didn't expect very much from South Carolina, but especially playing there at home, they're going to be ready for the Rebels.
There's no doubt about that. Speaking of Alabama and Vanderbilt, their starting quarterback, Diego Pavia, leads the team with 71 carries, 279 yards rushing. He's added 721 passing yards and 6 touchdowns and only 1 interception so far this season. We saw him firsthand against Auburn last year. Take a listen to what Diego had to say about facing Alabama and his team's confidence.
We got a team full of dogs who prepare every week like they want to play on Sundays. And so with that, the only person that knows who's going to win on Saturday is God. So we'll be prepared. We're going to do everything we can to win a football game. We fell just short to number 7 team in the nation. So we got to get over that little edge and then start punching some wins here.
That's Diego Pavia as he gets ready to face the Alabama Crimson Tide coming up this weekend.
He's a confident young man.
I mean, that's exactly what he should say. I
No,
mean, none
it
of that
is.
was disrespectful towards the opponent in any way whatsoever, but I think we all know how it's likely going to go on Saturday. But I like the confidence.
Yeah.
He's a good leader.
Not sure that God cares about the outcome, but
God also knows who's going to lose.
he does.
This is true.
I think we also know who's going to win and who's going to lose, but we could be wrong.
Wow. He sounds like Diego, isn't he?
He does. And they have
You got something for me to pee on now?
they have some similarities. Diego likes logos. Conrad, bottom of shower.
Yeah.
Bottom of the tub.
You don't know what logo's in the bottom of my shower.
Do you have a logo down there?
No, but I should get one.
I'm surprised. I'm surprised with that acidity. You haven't already etched something in there.
I have to reapply it every week, obviously.
Okay.
So, yesterday, we were going over the differences between Auburn and Georgia nationally. And Auburn,
Staggering.
yeah, there was a lot of stats that Auburn was ahead of Georgia. And I've got a side by side right now between Alabama and Vanderbilt, and I'm having a problem trying to make this a conversation.
You're not gonna. I don't think you're gonna find very much.
No, rushing offense, Bama's 16th best, Vanderbilt 63rd best. Passing offense, Bama 40th, Vandy 101.
What about grade point average?
That's not listed, Landrum.
Okay, I'm reaching here.
Hours
Trying to help
spent
you
in
out
the
here, E.
library.
Robinson.
Total offense, Bama 14th in America, Vandy 96. Scoring offense, Bama's 8th, Vandy's 25th.
Okay. Top 25 matchup.
Yep. Rushing defense, Bama 46, Vandy 52.
Okay.
Passing defense, Bama 52, Vandy 71. Total defense, Bama's the 41st best defense in America. Vandy's 54th.
There you go.
Scoring defense, Bama's 19th, Vandy's 67th. Interceptions, Bama's 31st in that category. Vandy's 48. Sacks, Bama's 34th. Vandy 44. But this is weird. Tackles for loss. Vandy averages more tackles for loss per game than Alabama.
There it is.
They are 37th. Bama is 59th. And the turnover margin is exactly the same per game. 0.75 per game for both Vanderbilt and Alabama.
Anchor down. We coming.
Alabama, you're next.
Or that was it. But it was even higher.
Yeah, I
It was
don't know.
pretty high.
I don't know if I can get my voice that
Alabama, you're next.
high. Alabama, you're next.
We will go to Tuscaloosa at 11 o'clock and talk to Rodney Orr from Tider Insider. 11:45, Rob Pate will talk to him about Auburn going between the hedges. Brett Norsworthy, the Southern Gentleman, WHBQ Radio in Memphis at 12:30. And we have got so much to get into, including Greg Sankey. Kind of pulls the curtain back about this meeting next week. And also there's a Big 12 blogger not very happy, throwing knives at Greg Sankey and the rest of the SEC. We'll get into that next on 3 Men Front. It is 10:32, Jocks 94.5. We'll go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Rodney Orr from Tiger Insider. He's going to join us. Duce Knight has committed to the Auburn Tigers. There's a lot of talk out there that a domino may fall and Caleb Cunningham may follow Duce Knight to Auburn.
Well, if you're headed to either a high school or a college game, you need to check out the Pants Store. They are your one-stop shop for all things game day. They have a large variety of game day tops, shorts, skirts, rompers, dresses, and so much more. The Pants Store, they have a game day outfit for every single team, whether you prefer neutrals or team colors. And don't forget, if you're going into the stadium, you're going to want to get a clear bag. It makes entering so much easier. So shop online at pantstore.com or in-store at one of their 6 locations in Alabama.
Unfortunately, from a partner, Landrum Roberts, he put up the baseball gloves and bat and balls last night as the Braves lose 5-4 to the Padres. Max Fried, he was charged with 8 hits and 5 runs after he took a line drive to the buttocks. Well, I mean, he said it affected him.
Well,
so
we as Braves fans have been taking line drives at the buttocks all year.
It is the 3rd consecutive year that the Braves, after winning the 2021 World Series, have lost in the first playoff series. Brian Snitker, 68 years old, said afterwards, with 1 year remaining on his contract, that he is excited and wished that spring training started today.
He's like a spring chicken, man.
That he is ready to go.
Woo! I'm ready to go, too.
Are you in the Snitker camp? Are you good with him moving forward?
I'm fine with Brian Snitker.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's some Braves fans that I am related to that they are not happy with Snitker.
Is that your parents?
My parents being some of them, yes.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who don't know, Pat's parents are really big Braves fans.
Yes.
He's the black sheep of the family.
Well, sure. Yeah. In many different forms.
I was
about to say it's not just because of that.
Well, no, I don't want to paint that picture.
It's a very interesting fandom when you like get to family get-togethers because my parents love the Braves.
I was blown away when you told me that, by the way.
I mean, they're the reason I'm a Cardinal fan.
You didn't break that to me until within the last year. And you said, yeah, my parents were watching last night when I talked to them. And I said, watching the Braves? Yeah, watching the Braves.
Oh, religious. Yep. And my sister obviously went to Ole Miss. My brother is a minister, and my brother is a huge Tennessee football fan. I mean, it's
wow.
Yeah,
that is a tangled web.
It is. It really is. I mean, it's a house divided. I mean, look at Molly's. Molly's brother went to Iowa.
I'm about to say my family's extremely divided.
Her mom's an Auburn fan, dad's an Alabama fan.
And they're still married.
So.
Well, that's.
Sister-in-law went to Michigan. We're all over the place.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Conrad has disowned Alabama. So I don't know where.
It's all crimson on Conrad's side.
Where Paige's allegiance is.
She just follows my lead.
I thought you were gonna. You see, I'm glad you didn't say she follows where I tell her to follow.
Conrad's misogynic.
No. Paige is an Alabama fan, but yeah, I mean, every single person in my family is an Alabama fan. So
we should have that sponsored. Your misogynistic line of the day.
All right, so moving forward,
that is such a horrible thing for you to put on me, Landrum. Please, I do not want that.
Who are you pulling for?
Between
anybody, like, is there a team left now in the playoffs that you are?
I will. Yeah, if the Tigers win, I won't be upset.
Yay!
Yeah, not pulling for your Yankees. Damn sure not pulling for the Dodgers, the Mets, or the Phillies.
Our manager's never been involved in a cheating scandal, though.
I'm fine with the
Royals.
Was
years ago.
See, I'm probably going Royals.
I'm fine with the Royals
just because of the Missouri connection.
I'm fine with the Royals. I'm fine with Detroit. I'm okay with that.
Fun fact: so the Guardians and the Tigers are playing each other. Mm-hmm. In the history of those two clubs, and they've been around a long time, original members of the Major League Baseball, they have played each other more than any other opponents, over 2,300 times that they have played baseball against each other. Now they're playing each other in the playoffs. It's pretty cool.
That is really cool.
So
Steve in Tuscaloosa wants to chime in on the Braves before we move on.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to Steve. Steve, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I was definitely relieved, not excited that the Braves made the wild card. And then, you got Mac getting hit in the buttocks yesterday. Pretty much sums up the entire season with all the injuries. So I think everyone did the best they could with what they had, and that's what it is. But, man, what a tease with Michael Harris hitting that home run.
I know.
Cut the deficit 5-4. But, us Braves fans are like, all right, are you falling for that? I'm not. But,
not this year. No,
yeah.
It was almost it's not relief. I wanted the Braves to win, but there is a sense of mercy where, let's just regroup and hopefully injury-wise and production-wise, everything goes a lot smoother than it did this season.
Well, you just didn't have that surge of energy throughout the season. You had Darno hitting one game-winning walk-off home run the entire season, okay? You didn't have those comeback wins. There's excitement. And it just seems like right before the All-Star game, they just cooled off with all the injuries. And it seems like Ozuna was just carrying the team for the longest time.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the inconsistency with the injuries, whether it was Albies and he was able to come back, but Austin Riley, Sean Murphy with the oblique, opening game of the year versus the Phillies. The list goes on. Strider. I mean, goodness gracious. AJ Minter, we don't even mention him.
Yeah. And then you go back. I don't think Max is coming back for the Braves.
No, you have seen Max Fried for the last time in the foreseeable future. Braves will re-sign him when he's like 39 and his fastball tops out at 83. We'll sign him to like a 1-year, $20 million deal. I digress.
But just whatever you say, Landrum, it's like, I was thinking that. That's the same thing. That's the way I felt. Of course, I wanted them to win. But in the end, it's like, okay, good. It's finally over. At least we made it for the 7th consecutive year to the postseason.
No doubt. That was an accomplishment in itself. That might be a loser's mentality, but you and I, it sounds like you watch as much Braves as I do, and that was a rough year, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Steve, we appreciate the phone call. Thank you so much.
Chop on.
Chop on, brother. Steve joining us.
So what other departures are you anticipating off that roster? Off the top of your head. I know you don't have it in front of you. I mean, obviously Fried.
Yeah, I wonder.
Obviously, is he locked up another year after the trade?
Yes, he is. He's good. We're good with Murphy. I mean, a lot of these guys, these younger guys, they got long-term deals.
Right.
So
Duvall, was that a 1-year deal?
Duvall might have been a 1-year deal, if I recall correctly. And then maybe some relievers that could be on their way. But other than that, I don't think it's anybody you got to go out and you're going to have to find another pitcher. Because you don't know, as far as Sale, he's not getting any younger. Lopez having to deal with some stuff. And of course, Strider coming back. You don't know what that's going to look like after another surgery. That's fine. Next man up. Anytime I hear buttocks, do y'all not think
a shot in the buttocks?
Pretty good Forrest Gump.
That's a really good. Mountain Drains and Plumbing, folks. Stand by. That's Iron Mountain Drains and Plumbing. Family owned and operated. They handle everything: faucet repairs, water heater maintenance, commercial plumbing.